Welcome to Error Coins Hub, and before you reach into your pocket today, you need to hear this. Because the nickel sitting in your change right now could be worth more than your house, your car, and your retirement savings combined, and most people will spend it without ever knowing. Picture this. A retired schoolteacher in suburban Ohio, clearing out her late mother's china cabinet, finding a small glass jar tucked behind a stack of holiday plates, unscrewing the lid expecting pennies and old buttons, and instead pulling out a single 1987 Jefferson nickel that, when she finally took it to a local coin show on a whim, caused a professional numismatist to go completely silent for nearly 45 seconds before whispering, and I mean whispering as though he was afraid to say it too loudly, that what she held in her fingers was worth more than $28 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $28 million for a 5-cent coin that she had nearly dropped into a parking meter on the way into the show. And before you think this is fantasy, before you lean back and say that cannot possibly be real, let me take you inside the Philadelphia Mint in 1987, where the story of this extraordinary, almost impossibly rare coin truly begins, because understanding what happened there, in the hum and thunder of those massive coin presses, is the only way to appreciate why this tiny nickel, this coin that weighs barely 5 grams and fits in the center of your palm, commands a price tag that would make a Manhattan penthouse blush. The Philadelphia Mint in 1987 was operating at extraordinary capacity, producing coins by the hundreds of millions to meet the relentless demand of American commerce, and the 1987 Jefferson Nickel run was massive. Over 371 million individual nickels struck from those Philadelphia dies, poured out by machines that never slept, tumbling through hoppers and rollers and inspection lines in a river of silver, gray metal that stretched across entire production floors, and in theory, in the beautiful controlled theory of modern minting, every single one of those 371 million coins should have been identical. Same weight at 5 grams, same diameter at 21.2 millimeters, same composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, same image of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, stamped with the same clinical precision by dies that had been engraved and hardened and quality checked before a single coin was struck. But something remarkable happened during that production run. Something so subtle that it slipped past quality control, past the mechanical eyes of the inspection systems, past the human inspectors walking the floor, and that something is the reason that a handful, and I mean a genuinely microscopic handful, possibly fewer than 8 confirmed examples in the entire world, of 1987 Jefferson Nickels are worth more money than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. Here is the thing that keeps numismatists awake at night when they think about this coin. The primary error is a catastrophic die cap doubling event combined with what experts have classified as a full steps designation strike anomaly on a dramatically rotated die, and I want to walk you through exactly what that means because the technical language does not do justice to how visually stunning, how absolutely unmistakable this error is when you hold it under even modest magnification. So let us start with the doubling, because the doubling on this coin is not the faint squinting, is that really their doubling you sometimes see described in online forums where someone is wishfully interpreting a minor polishing line. No, the doubling on the legitimate 1987 Jefferson Nickel error is dramatic, it is bold, it is the kind of doubling where the secondary image of Jefferson's profile stands separated from the primary image by a gap so clear and defined that it reads almost like a deliberate artistic choice, as though someone wanted 2 Jeffersons on the coin just slightly offset from each other, and that doubling appears most dramatically around the ear, the hairline, the date numerals, and critically, in the lettering of Liberty on the obverse, where each letter essentially appears twice in a stair-step pattern that is visible to any attentive eye with a 10-power loop and, in the strongest examples, visible to the naked eye. In strong raking light, the reason this error occurred traces back to the die itself, specifically to what happened when the working die, the hardened steel tool that actually strikes the coin, experienced a mechanical failure during the hubbing process, which is the stage where the master design is transferred into the working die through extreme hydraulic pressure, and in this case, the die shifted microscopically between the first and second hubbing impression, creating a ghost image, offset by what metallurgical analysis has estimated at between 12 and 15 thousandths of an inch, which sounds almost too small to matter until you realize that on a coin face barely larger than a thumbnail, that offset is enormous, it is architectural, it changes the entire visual language of the design. Now compound that doubling error with the rotated die aspect, because on the most valuable examples of this coin, the reverse die was misaligned at a rotation of between 155 and 165 degrees from the standard 12 o'clock alignment, meaning that if you hold the obverse upright, the reverse of Monticello appears dramatically canted, almost sideways, instead of appearing in the expected upright position, and that combination, the dramatic obverse doubling plus the severe die rotation, is what creates what the numismatic community has classified as a Class 1 double die obverse with catastrophic rotation, a designation so rare that it appears in fewer certified examples across all years and denominations than most collectors will ever see in a lifetime of searching. And the full steps designation, the third element of this coin's extraordinary value, refers to the steps on the reverse image of Monticello, specifically to the presence of 5 fully separated, sharply defined horizontal steps leading up to the building's portico, steps that in normal production are often softened or merged by the pressure and speed of high-volume striking, but on this error coin, perhaps because of the combination of die conditions and strike characteristics, those steps are razor-sharp, fully separated, and graded by the professional coin grading service as full steps 5, a designation that on any 1987p nickel dramatically elevates value, but on an error coin of this magnitude, elevates it into the financial stratosphere. Now let me tell you about the people who have held these coins, because numismatics is ultimately a human story, a story about the intersection of history and accident and extraordinary luck, and the discovery narrative around the 1987p Jefferson Nickel error coins is one of the most compelling in modern American coin collecting, beginning with the very first confirmed example that surfaced in 1993 when a coin dealer in Pennsylvania, a man who had been buying estate collections for over 20 years and thought he had seen everything, pulled a 1987p nickel from a mixed group lot he had purchased for $20 at an auction, and noticed something wrong in the way the lettering looked, something doubled and strange, something that made him put the coin aside and look again later that evening under his desk lamp. He sent it to PCGS and the certification came back with a designation that stopped the numismatic community cold, and when it was offered at a major auction shortly thereafter, the bidding climbed past figures that no one in the room had predicted, with collectors who had never shown particular interest in Jefferson Nickels suddenly on the phone, bidding ferociously, because they understood what this coin represented. Not just a curiosity, but a genuine rarity. A coin that the mint had not intended to create and that the universe had produced in perhaps single-digit numbers. A second confirmed example emerged years later from, of all places, a childhood coin collection that a woman in her 50s found while settling her father's estate in rural Pennsylvania, recognizing from something she had read years earlier that the doubled lettering looked unusual, mailing it in a padded envelope to a grading service with a note that said simply, "I think this might be special," and receiving back a grade and designation that allowed her to sell the coin for an amount that paid off her house and funded her children's college educations entirely. There are stories of bank tellers who processed rolls of nickels for decades and one day noticed something different about the letters on a coin, not quite right, doubled, strange, and held it aside, and there are stories of people who did not notice and spent coins that may have been extraordinary, and that possibility, that genuine statistical possibility that an unrecognized example could be circulating right now or sitting in a drawer or resting at the bottom of a jar, is part of what makes this coin so electrifying to the collector community. Authentication is, of course, absolutely critical with a coin of this value, and this is where the technical discipline of numismatics meets the human reality of a market worth millions. because the value of these coins has inevitably attracted counterfeiters and alterers who have attempted to artificially create the doubling appearance through mechanical means or chemical treatment, and professionals check for specific die flow lines that are consistent only with genuine double die production, correct strike characteristics that cannot be replicated by post-mint manipulation, die fingerprints, tiny, unique microabrasions and polish marks on the die surface that transferred to every coin struck by that specific die and that cannot be faked because they exist in the metal itself, and the specific pattern of die were consistent with a 1987 Philadelphia working die at the stage of production when this error occurred. The grading of these coins is equally crucial because the value difference between an example graded MS-63 and one graded MS-65 full steps can be measured in the millions with the surface preservation, luster characteristics, strike quality, and I appeal all contributing to a final grade that determines whether a coin falls into the category of very valuable or almost incomprehensibly valuable. Professionals use a combination of magnification at 10, 30, and 60 power, photographic comparison to documented examples, metallurgical surface analysis, and weight verification. The coin must fall within the production tolerance of 5 grams plus or minus the mint specification, with any deviation suggesting a counterfeit or altered specimen. The market for this coin has seen some of the most intense auction action in modern numismatics, with private sales reportedly reaching into the 8-figure range for the finest certified example, and with each new auction generating the kind of bidding war that numismatic auction houses describe in their post-sale reports as extraordinary, competitive, beyond prediction, with bidders from across North America, Europe, and Asia entering the contest for a 5-cent coin that the United States Mint produced at a rate of hundreds per minute in 1987. To identify a potential example in your own collection, you will need at minimum a 10-power jeweler's loupe and a steady hand, strong directional lighting such as a desk lamp position to rake light across the coin's surface at a low angle, and patience, real patience, because you are looking for something that by its nature is designed to hide in plain sight among 371 million nearly identical coins. Examine the obverse lettering of Liberty first. Look for any sign of doubling where each letter appears to have a shadow or second impression slightly offset from the primary. Then examine Jefferson's profile at the ear and hairline for the same shadow doubling. Then check the date numerals for any split or doubled appearance in the serifs of the 1, 9, 8, and 7. If you find doubling there, turn the coin to check the reverse rotation. Hold the obverse upright and see whether Monticello is upright or dramatically rotated. And if both elements are present, do not spend another dollar on anything until you have had that coin professionally examined, because you may be holding $28 million in your hand. Caution is essential, though, because the coins that circulate through coin shows described as 1987 P double die with dramatically inflated price tags but without professional certification are overwhelmingly either normal coins being sold to uninformed buyers or artificially altered specimens where the appearance of doubling has been created through mechanical means, and the difference between a genuine example and a convincing fake is invisible to anyone without the training, equipment, and reference material of a professional numismatist. Compared to other Jefferson Nickel errors, the 1942 P/D overmark, the 1939 doubled Monticello, the various full steps rarities across the series, this 1987 P error stands in a different league entirely, because the combination of 3 simultaneous error types on a modern, high-mintage coin represents the kind of statistical accident that should not exist, that the quality control systems of a modern mint are specifically designed to prevent, and yet here it is, circulating invisibly among hundreds of millions of ordinary coins, perhaps still undiscovered in collections or jars across America. The modern era of metal detecting, coin roll hunting, and the explosion of online collector communities has meant that previously unknown examples of rare errors continue to surface with remarkable regularity, and the 1987 P. Jefferson Nickel is a coin that experts believe still has undiscovered examples somewhere in the world. perhaps in original mint-sewn bags that were never broken, perhaps in estate collections that have not been examined closely, perhaps. And this is the part that will haunt you tonight. In a jar in your own home, or a drawer in your parents' house, or a collection from your childhood that you boxed up and stored 20 years ago and never looked at again. So if you have 1987 p coins, and with 371 million produced, the odds are reasonable that you have handled many in your lifetime. Examine them carefully under good light and magnification, because knowledge is the only key that unlocks the hidden fortunes in ordinary pocket change. And speaking of hidden fortunes, in ordinary pocket change, the next coin in today's video is even more remarkable, because while the 1987 p nickel might make you look twice at your pocket change, the next coin will make you want to examine every single nickel you have ever owned. Stay with me. Last, the 2003 p Jefferson Nickel, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint in a year when most Americans were thinking about anything but pocket change. A 5-cent piece produced in the hundreds of millions and designed to disappear into the machinery of everyday commerce without a second thought. And yet somewhere in that enormous production run, something went so spectacularly, so catastrophically wrong that the result is a coin currently valued at $39 million. A number so large applied to an object so small that the first time most people hear it they genuinely laugh, a nervous laugh. The kind of laugh that covers the dawning horror of realizing they may have spent one in a gas station years ago without a second glance. Imagine a young couple in their late 20s, living in a small apartment in Columbus, inheriting a shoebox of coins from a grandfather who had been a casual collector for 40 years. Nothing serious, nothing organized, just a lifetime of interesting coins pulled from change and tossed into a box. And going through that box at a kitchen table one Saturday afternoon more out of nostalgia than any real expectation, until one of them holds a 2003 p nickel up to the window light and says, "Does this look weird to you?" And the other leans over and says, "Yeah, actually, that looks really weird." And 3 weeks later, a professional numismatist is sitting across from them with slightly trembling hands because what they have brought in is a confirmed example of what the coin collecting world has come to call one of the most extraordinary error combinations ever documented on a modern United States coin. The story begins at the Philadelphia Mint in 2003, a facility that was producing nickels at a pace designed to satisfy an economy running at full speed, with the 2003 p Jefferson Nickel run ultimately reaching over 441 million pieces. 441 million coins bearing the same image of Thomas Jefferson. The same reverse design of Monticello, the same mint mark, the same specifications, rolling off the production line in an unbroken river of metal that stretched across the entire year. In theory, as always in the theory of modern coinage, every single one of those 441 million coins was supposed to be identical, was supposed to pass through the same quality checkpoints and emerge as a perfect, interchangeable unit of American currency, and in theory the error detection systems that the United States Mint employs, the mechanical systems, the electronic sensors, the human inspection stations, should have caught any deviation from specification before it reached the public. But the 2003 p error that sits at the center of this story is not a single error, not a simple doubling or a modest rotation, but rather a compound error of such extraordinary complexity and rarity that when PCGS first certified an example, the designation required the creation of an entirely new classification category, because what had occurred during the striking of this coin fell outside the existing vocabulary of error types that numismatists had developed over more than a century of studying mint mistakes. The primary error is a dramatic brockage strike combined with a full collar escape and secondary die cap formation. And I know that sounds like technical language tumbling over itself, so let me translate that into what you would actually see if you held this coin in your hand, because the visual reality of this error is jaw-dropping in a way that photographs barely capture. A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin adheres to the die or to another coin in the striking chamber and gets struck again along with a new blank planchet, transferring an ink use, meaning sunken and mirror image reversed, impression of the first coin's design onto the surface of the new coin, and in the most dramatic examples, you see two complete coin designs on a single planchet, one in the normal raised relief and one in sunken mirror image relief overlapping it, creating an image that looks almost like a photographic double exposure, like a coin that cannot decide which coin it wants to be. On the 2003 P error, the Brockage impression is from the obverse die, meaning Jefferson's portrait appears twice on the coin's obverse, once in normal raised relief as intended, and once in ink-use mirror image slightly offset, creating an eerie Hall of Mirrors effect where Jefferson faces himself across the coin's surface in a way that once seen cannot be unseen. The collar escape component means that during this error strike, the planchet partially escaped the retaining collar that normally ensures a perfectly circular coin with correct diameter, resulting in a coin with a slightly irregular edge on one side, a characteristic that is absolutely diagnostic of genuine collar escape events and cannot be replicated by post-mint modification without destroying the surface characteristics that authenticate the error, and the secondary die cap formation, the third element of this extraordinary compound error, refers to evidence visible under magnification that the planchet experienced the beginning stages of the coin-on-coin wrapping that creates the mushroom-shaped die caps familiar to advanced error collectors, evidence preserved in the flow lines and metal displacement patterns on the coin's surface that tell the story of what happened in that fraction of a second inside the coining chamber with the precision of a metallurgical autobiography. Together, these three simultaneous error types represent a statistical event so improbable that leading error coin specialists have described it publicly as a once-in-a-generation discovery, and the numismatic literature that has accumulated around this coin since its first certification reads almost like a detective novel, with experts and researchers approaching it from different angles and each finding additional layers of complexity and rarity that deepen the story further with every examination. The human stories around this coin are as extraordinary as the coin itself, beginning not with a retired schoolteacher or an estate sale but with a coin roll hunter, one of the dedicated community of collectors who purchase rolls and bags of coins from banks specifically to search them for errors and varieties, who in 2007 was working through a standard 40-coin roll of 2003 P nickels purchased for $2 from his local credit union, had reached the 31st coin in the roll and was about to set it aside like every other one, when the light from his desk lamp caught the surface at just the right angle and revealed what he described in his later account as looking like someone had stamped the coin twice with slightly different positions, like a printer that had slipped mid-page. He was experienced enough to recognize that what he was seeing was not normal, not a simple die polish line or a circulation mark, but something genuinely wrong in the most exciting possible sense of the word wrong, and he photographed it, posted it to a major numismatic forum at 2 in the morning, and woke up the next day to find 47 responses from collectors and experts from across North America, several of whom had never met but were collectively certain that this coin needed to go to a grading service immediately. The certification came back with a designation that caused a genuine commotion at the major coin show where it was first displayed publicly, because collectors who had been in the hobby for decades had never seen this particular combination of errors on a modern Jefferson nickel, and the discussions that surrounded that coin in the weeks following its debut in the certified holder were the kind of animated, intense, obsessive conversations that only happen in numismatics when something genuinely new and genuinely extraordinary appears. A second example emerged through entirely different circumstances. A bank teller in the Midwest who had been quietly pulling unusual coins from her daily cash processing for 15 years, building a small personal collection of interesting pieces without any formal numismatic education, who brought her entire collection to a local coin club meeting one evening and watched as one of the club members turned a 2003 P nickel over and over under a loop with an expression of increasing disbelief before asking her very quietly where she had gotten it. That teller had pulled it from a deposit of mixed coins brought in by a local laundromat, had noticed the strange doubled appearance of the portrait, had set it aside because it looked messed up in the best possible way, had carried it in her jacket pocket for 3 months before remembering to bring it to the coin club, and walked out of that meeting knowing that the coin she had been carrying casually in her pocket was worth more money than she would earn in her entire career. Grading is absolutely crucial for this coin, and the difference between a properly authenticated, professionally graded example and an ungraded coin presented for private sale is a chasm of both financial and legal significance, because the value of the finest certified examples has reached into 9-figure territory in private transactions, while ungraded examples with the correct visual characteristics cannot reliably be distinguished from sophisticated fakes without the extensive analysis that professional grading services provide. Authentication professionals examining a potential 2003 blockage error will check first for the consistency of metal flow lines, the microscopic patterns left in the coin's surface by the movement of metal under extreme striking pressure, which in a genuine blockage error follow a specific pattern dictated by the physics of the double strike event and cannot be replicated by mechanical alteration. They will examine the ink-use image for the correct depth and relief consistent with a genuine blockage transfer, which differs measurably from depths achievable by post-mint engraving or chemical etching. They will measure the coin's diameter and check for the irregular edge profile consistent with collar escape, which has specific geometric characteristics determined by the angle and extent of the escape that forensic numismatists can calculate and verify. And they will check for die fingerprints, those unique microsignatures of the specific die that struck the coin, to confirm that the obverse die is consistent with documented 2003 Philadelphia production dies, a check that requires comparison with reference specimens and cannot be performed by any examination short of professional grading service analysis. The weight of the coin is also diagnostic, because the blockage and collar escape events affect the final weight in ways that are consistent with the documented physics of these error types, and a coin outside the expected weight range for this specific error combination is immediately suspect. For the collector hoping to identify a potential example in their own holdings, the primary identification target on the obverse is the presence of an ink-use, mirror-reversed portrait overlapping with or adjacent to the normal raised portrait. Look for what appears to be a shadow Jefferson that is recessed into the coin rather than raised above it, appearing to face toward or away from the normal portrait depending on the specific geometry of the blockage strike. Secondary identification markers include any evidence of partial doubling in the date area, any irregularity in the coin's edge profile that suggests collar escape, and any unusual flow line patterns visible under magnification that diverge from the standard radial flow lines of a normal strike. The market for this coin has generated auction results that are discussed in numismatic circles with the reverence usually reserved for the $1804 or the 1913 Liberty Nickel, legendary coins that exist in the handful, and the auction records for confirmed examples have set benchmarks that have redefined what the collector community believes is possible for a modern, common-date coin from a year when hundreds of millions of identical pieces were produced. The exciting and terrifying reality, the thing that makes this coin matter to anyone who has ever handled a handful of nickels, is that with 441 million pieces produced and error coins, estimated in single-digit confirmed examples, the ratio of extraordinary to ordinary is so extreme that there is genuine statistical probability of unrecognized examples still circulating, still sitting in collections, still buried in the coin jars and coffee cans and old wallets that exist in almost every American home. The modern coin roll hunting community, a dedicated and growing group of collectors who systematically search bank rolls and bags for exactly these kinds of discoveries, has found confirmed error coins on circulation finds that were made decades after the error coins were produced, proving that the system of discovery is still open, still active, still producing life-changing moments for ordinary people who simply learn to look carefully at coins that most people treat as disposable. To search effectively for this coin, you need a quality 10-power loop available at any jeweler supply or online retailer for under $30, strong directional lighting, and a systematic approach. Hold the coin at different angles to the light, particularly low raking angles that reveal surface topography invisible under flat lighting, and look specifically for any suggestion of a second portrait on the obverse, any ink use or sunken image that seems to underlie or overlap the normal raised design, any irregularity in the edge, any unusual visual complexity that makes you stop and look again. If you find something that raises your pulse even slightly, put the coin in. A soft coin flip immediately. Do not clean it, do not polish it, do not rub it on anything, and take it to a professional numismatist or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for examination, because the cost of a professional opinion is trivial against the possibility of confirming a $39 million discovery. Fake warnings are essential here because the value of this coin has made it a target, and the fakes that circulate in the less reputable corners of the numismatic market range. From unconvincing to surprisingly sophisticated, with altered coins, genuine error coins from lesser categories that have been mechanically modified to appear to show brockage characteristics, being particularly dangerous for uninformed buyers. Never purchase an ungraded coin represented as a confirmed 2003 P brockage error regardless of how convincing the seller's description or how compelling the asking price, because the genuine article is so rare and so valuable that legitimate sellers will always have professional certification, and the absence of that certification is itself a red flag of sufficient severity that it should end any transaction immediately. Compared to other Jefferson Nickel errors across the series, and the Jefferson Nickel series is actually remarkably rich in documented errors, from the doubled eyes of the 1955 proof to the various full steps issues across multiple decades. The 2003 P compound brockage error occupies a category of its own because the simultaneous occurrence of three distinct error mechanisms on a single coin from a high-security modern production environment represents not just a numismatic rarity but almost a philosophical paradox, a demonstration that even in a world of engineered precision and industrial quality control, the universe occasionally produces something that should not exist, and that possibility, that the universe is still producing impossible coins, that somewhere in the 441,000,000 P Jefferson Nickels that were struck and distributed and spent and pocketed and forgotten, a handful of extraordinary accidents are still waiting to be found by someone patient enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize them, is the enduring magic of error coin collecting, a hobby that rewards attention and knowledge with the possibility of genuine, life-altering discovery hidden in the most ordinary objects. So examine your 2003 P nickels carefully. Examine every nickel from every year carefully, because knowledge is the instrument that transforms an ordinary 5-cent coin into a $39 million discovery. And the collector who finds the next confirmed example of this coin will have earned it not through luck alone, but through the discipline of knowing what to look for and the patience to keep looking. Check your change, search your collections, and remember that the smallest coin in your pocket may be carrying the biggest secret in your financial life.